Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos Podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a prepared individual and a survivalist in today's day and age. I'm your host, Chris Bartagone, ZP002. Back with me on the show, my co-host, Jamie Franks. Jamie, welcome back to the show. The Senior Chief.
Merry New Year.
Happy Festivus.
I always forget which movies are because I guess there's a couple, but I always say the only Thanksgiving movie is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and there's a million Christmas movies, and then I always forget that there's New Year's movies too, like Trading Places and Ghostbusters 2. So that was
you're fired until you start adding Violent Night as a Christmas movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I was just thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, damn it, there's a Christmas movie I forgot to watch. It's Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie.
Oh, there you go. Well, the internet says that Lethal Weapon is too, because there's a Christmas tree. And
the movie opens with Jingle Bell Rock and the topless prostitute face planting onto a car. So.
Oh boy, good stuff. Well, welcome back, Jamie. I would like to say that this is the first episode recorded of the new year, but it is not. It is the second one, but it is the second one in 2 days, and it's because we have so much important stuff to talk about. One of the things that I want to make sure that we focus on this year in the new year is the direction of this channel. And ZERT, it's no secret that ZERT has been a firearms centric community, if you will. It started with a lot of firearms training back in the day, and we still want to push that, but I do want to make sure that we do highlight a lot of the other stuff. And that's obviously, some of that has been based off of the movie that I just saw, the movie that is going to kind of drive today's show, and also some of the other stuff that we have seen just in the first 7 days of this year with the crazy shit happening. Everybody obviously woke up to the news on New Year's Day of what was going on. There has been some news stories, some debunking of those stories. And as we always say, when you guys listen to this show, just do your own research. We just do this to make sure that we give you guys thought-provoking questions and ideas to go and do your own research. But I want to focus a lot on the rest of the survivalist mindset this year on this show, with going basically just off of our recap from last year's show. Some of our highlights were some of the non-firearm centric stuff, the survival stuff and stuff like that.
We did our recap show, and we talked about what our favorite shows of the past year were. And most of mine were the non-firearms related things. And I do think we do a good job on this show of making the topics a variety of things that all kind of, some of them are direct lines and some of them are tangential, but everything connects back to being prepared in one way or another. And it's just, the thing about it is you and I just both really like guns.
Well, yes, we really do. And that's part of, it is definitely part of my survival plan. It is, when I sit here and when we start talking about these things today in our go bags and what we would grab and how much we would grab, my biggest decision is what firearms to take. Right. And we could do an entire show just on that. What firearms to take in a emergency, get out of your house situation, and you may never be coming home. Now, we can't even go down that rabbit hole because we have so much to cover on today's show. But the movie that we're referring to is Homestead. And if you guys have not seen the movie yet, it is still out in the theaters. And it is definitely a good movie to go and see. It's an entertaining movie to go and see. You do leave the theater wanting more because it's only a fraction of the story. And there is 2 more episodes that are streaming that you have to download Angel Studios to watch. They tell you that there's 3, and then when you finish the second one and they leave you on the cliffhanger, you go to watch 3 and they're like, it's not produced yet, but you're helping produce it. So there is more of the story to tell.
And
And
I'll back to the movie. I saw it. I took my daughter to see it on Christmas Eve, and if you're listening to this podcast, this movie is for you. Like, they, instead of calling the movie Homestead, they could have called the movie the ZERT movie. Like,
it is.
Yeah,
it is. Now, what I will tell you, and again, just in the veil of transparency and honesty, the movie is, it's not going to win any Academy Awards. There's no Golden Globes that are going to give these actors their awards. And then when you get to the series, if you get there, the acting becomes worse. And there are,
I was just going to say, some of the actors may do better in Golden Gloves than Golden Globes.
Yeah, Golden Globe, right. Some of the story I just don't give a shit about. To me, there needed to be no romance situation happening in this movie, and immediately it becomes one of the themes. I'm just like, no, that's not what I'm here for. What I will tell you, go ahead.
So you got to give the movie, like, yes, there are some authenticity issues with the movie. There are some realism issues with the movie. And also, I think they were trying maybe a little too hard to make the movie appealing to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they kind of put in like an unnecessary little love story. I mean, when my favorite movie of all time ever, period, is 1984 Red Dawn. When they remade the whatever year it was, the remake of Red Dawn, they put an unnecessary love story in that. But I think that's just them trying to hedge their bets and make the movie more appealing to more people. But yeah, I agree with you, but I also understand why they did it.
So what I will tell you is worth every dollar that I paid for the movie and the popcorn that I enjoyed is what it left me thinking about walking out of that theater.
100%.
I walked out of that theater with the understanding that it wasn't a plant virus that took the world. It wasn't a zombie bite that took the world. It was a terrorist attack that took the world. And I won't say took the world. I mean, took the country, right? Nuclear and something happened on the East Coast as well. So simultaneous attacks.
So, and just with that, they show what happened on the West Coast, and then as the situation is unfolding, people are getting bits of information from here and there that are really are hearsay. It's in the movie as the story is presented to the viewer. It's never really confirmed what is going on outside of the local area, and I think they did that on purpose. And I think that was an actual very realistic element, because in a situation like that, your scope of gathering information, gathering intelligence, if you will, is probably gonna be more or less limited to your local area. And any information that you have coming in is gonna be, from he said, she said. Like when you were in kindergarten and you played the telephone game, and and passed a message around the class, and by the time it gets to the last person, it was a different message than what you started with. So I thought that was a really good, smart element of the movie, is this thing happened on the West Coast, and then there's like rumors that this and this and this and this other thing is going on the East Coast, but you don't ever really know. So.
Right. And whether you want to keep your head buried in the sand and not accept the fact that it is in the realm of possibility that we can see it, you have to pay attention. What I also walked away realizing from this movie is that it is a very, very challenging topic to approach with people who are not already a little bit there.
That's a good, I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
It's a really good point, because I tried to have that conversation with people since then that are not in this same mindset arena, and it is literally dismissed. And all I can picture it is, I'm just going to put my head in the sand and I don't want to even think about it. I asked a friend of mine who's got kids, I said, if this shit goes down right now, what are you going to do in the next 20 minutes? Where are you going to go? Do you have a plan? And his response is, no, that's for single people. I got kids. I'm just going to stay here. I was like, wow.
And that situation plays out in the movie too.
Right. That is absolutely crazy to me. Now, I get it. It's a very, very hard topic to approach with people. And what I want to at least just jump into for a second is, it's all about the way you do have that conversation. And it's all about how you prepare the individuals around you. And even if they don't go all in and go, buy a bunker underground in the next 24 to 48 hours, they start to understand that there needs to be some kind of plan in place. If you look at the weather tomorrow or today in the morning, and it says a low of 27 and a high of 55, are you just dressing for the 55 degrees and going out? No, you're preparing for the entire spectrum of weather. You're going out with a jacket and a hoodie, and you have a short sleeve shirt underneath. Like, being a prepared individual doesn't mean you've got, pallets of food and jugs of water in your basement. It's not this. It's a spectrum, and it covers a wide range.
And it's very, very layered, and it's very, very complex. I mean, if you wanted to, you could start a whole podcast on all these different aspects of survival and preparation. And I mean,
right.
You could do weekly episodes and talk about different stuff every week. But that was
I got it.
Okay.
It was kind of sarcasm.
But no, I mean it, and not to get us too far off topic,
right.
But I mean, with all these subtleties and layers, and because I am a very prepared person, and if something like this happens, one of my very first top priorities is, wherever my daughter is, I'm going to get her, and she's coming underneath my shield. And this movie made me think about things like, what about her mom? In front of my daughter, am I going to bring my daughter into my circle of protection, and then in front of my daughter send her mother away to die and fuck you, bitch? And then how's my daughter gonna look at me after that? And so what's the implication there? Hopefully my ex-wife dies in the explosion, and then I don't have to worry about it.
Oh, geez. Okay.
But
so here's the thing. I mean, and I kind of went down that same rabbit hole. I've got two elderly parents that are in the vicinity of where I am. But then I've got my sister and my nieces and her husband. But is her husband, should they have a plan? And so that's what I'm talking about. Approaching this subject with those people that are in your network are important. What I also learned is, you can't plan for everybody. You've got to plan for your immediate contingent, your immediate group, and let people know that you've got a plan, and they need to come up with theirs, and hopefully it can link together with yours at some point.
And so a couple things there. I cannot tell you how many people in my life have told me, oh, well, I know where I'm going when the shit hits the fan. I'm going to Jamie's house. And my standard canned response to that is, if you show up at my door, you better be coming with more than just an open hand and an empty mouth, or an empty hand and an open mouth, whatever. But also, this movie, it one of the first good points that it makes is, when a big, huge disaster like this happens, at whatever form it takes. I mean, let's just base this conversation off what happened in the movie, right? It's a nuclear bomb or a dirty bomb, whatever, explodes adjacent to a major population center, right just off the coast. And when I say off the coast, I mean within 2 miles of land from Los Angeles.
Right.
And so something like that happens in the short term, you do need to look out for yourself and your family and your house. And this movie makes a great point of like at the very beginning, you can be me, mine. I need to look out for myself and my kids and my family and my house and my safety and with my supplies and my guns and me, my. But that only goes so far. And at some point, you're going to have to let other people in. You're going to have to join forces with somebody. Hopefully it's other people in your circle of friends or whatever that, like you said, that also have a plan on their own. And I think you just said it perfectly. Is I have my plan, you have your plan, and hopefully our two plans will join, a little ways down the road. And
Right.
so, at the very beginning, you do need to look out for you and yours. But as we've discussed many other times on this show, as it really pertains to other things, the being the one man wolf pack is not a solution.
No, it's
At,
definitely not.
at some point, you're going to have to sleep. You're going to have to bathe. You're going to have to take a poop, and somebody needs to watch your back while you're doing those things. Like this idea of like Book of Eli, where you're out
Right.
roaming the earth as a lone wolf nomad on your own long-term survival with a knapsack on your back. That's a very romanticized notion, but it is far from reality.
Now, fun fact, maybe not popular or maybe not, maybe not well known, but did you know that he's blind in that movie?
Yes, I did know that. Are you kidding?
No. Oh, some people didn't know. I didn't know at first.
Yeah,
no, I had no idea that he was blind in that movie at first. I was like, no, there's no freaking way. There's no way. And then like it was pointed out, they're like, yeah, watch, just go back and watch it. It's not obvious.
It's not obvious until the end. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen that movie that came out 20 years ago, we're about to spoil it for you. But when the guy finally gets his hands on the Bible and then he opens it and it's Braille and he can't read it,
Right.
But, yeah.
But that's literally it. That's the only time you could tell. Otherwise, he doesn't look like a blind man. Like you see the blind man, like they just have this like
it's like the I See Dead People movie. It's like once that's revealed and you think back, like, that's
he never shot first. He always waited for that first shot to come through, and then he would go. Yeah, so very interesting take. But anyway, that's off the subject. So again, so what happens in the movie? Literally, obviously, happens, and immediately, cell phones are not really working, right? Like
they're not working, but they're very, very limited or bogged down or disrupted, whatever you want to say. The cell phones are still working partially, not reliably and not normally, I would, but they're not totally down either. So
right. There was enough information to get the original two characters that we are introduced to I'm sorry, there was enough cell phone reception to get the two characters to communicate, albeit choppy, breaking up, but they understood what was happening, and that sets off the movie.
Yeah.
And the first line, or one of the first few lines when it all goes down afterwards, is the mother says to the daughter, grab the go bags and we're going. Now, the communication that comes from the husband to the wife is get to the homestead. So, before we get into the go bags and the plan and, getting to the homestead, we've talked about this before on this show. And we've talked about all of this starts with your plan, right? Now,
it starts with your plan and knowing when to activate your plan.
But I think there needs to be kind of a book of plans, right? There's not one plan that is going to have the end all be all solution checklist for what may come, right? Like that plan has to be different. The plan, go ahead.
Oh, no. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're 100% correct. Like I when I was thinking about my thought process for this episode, you are 100% right. If there was a ticking bomb and I had 5 minutes exactly, not 5 minutes and 1 second, not 7 minutes. I have 5 minutes and I have to be wheels up, leaving my driveway, never to return to my house. Can I make enough good choices in 5 minutes to get out of here and sustain me? And then and if I were to make a checklist, like you just said, you use the word checklist, which I think is great. If I had to make my 5-minute checklist of I've got 5 minutes to get what I need to get and get out of here, never to return. Honestly, it may not seem like that big of a difference, but my 5-minute checklist would be much different than my 10-minute checklist, which would be much different from my 30-minute checklist, which would be much, much different than my 2 hours checklist. So,
well, and I think that, I think all of that like the preparation has to be done continuously to make sure that you can execute those timelines perfect. Right. So yes, I could get out of my house and wheels up in 5 minutes if I knew what the situation was. So let's just say, nuclear goes off and going east is not an option. You've got to go west. Okay, great. And I know, great. Okay. I go to the wherever, the closet, the room, grab bag labeled A, B, and C, grab those, get the dog, get in the truck, go. Now, right there, get in the truck and go is a great plan if you can do that. Right? Now, how many of you out there right now left wherever you were last, went and filled up your gas tank before you got to your house?
Bro, it's like we're on the same wavelength.
Right. Like, I don't always have a full tank of gas. I don't ever let my truck go below a quarter of a tank, but I don't always have a full tank of gas that gets me, 350 to 400 miles, depending on my MPGs and if I'm driving highway. Understand that. These are all little details that you may be able to adjust to on the fly. And, God forbid you have an electric vehicle.
Well, so, and we've definitely talked about this before in one of the earlier episodes, but when you start talking about this and you start thinking about this and you start thinking about it in these big, broad terms like we are now, these massive brushstrokes, it can be overwhelming if you are listening to this and you realize, crap, I'm really not prepared. And you don't need to go out and spend $1 million today. These are small incremental changes that you can implement. Like you just said, right now, my car sitting in my driveway does not have a full tank of gas, but I do have 25 gallons of gas in gas cans in my garage. And twice a year, I dump those into my car and then take them and refill them. And it's seamless. It's non-invasive. It's not a huge thing that I have to do in my, it's like changing the batteries in your smoke detector. Like it's this little thing that you have to just remember to do it twice a year. But if you ever need it, it's there. And if you don't ever need it, guess what? It's there anyway. And you can still use it. Like,
yeah, you made a great point, right? So and I'm sure everybody out there knows this, but gas doesn't stay stable forever and it will break down. So your point is, okay, I wait, find out what that time is. So if the gas can sit for 6 months, then understand that if you don't use that 25 gallons in 6 months, pour it in your vehicle and then go refill it and have it ready to go. That's a great point. That's a great tip. So for anybody out there, thanks, Jamie.
The gas I always put in my gas cans is whatever the highest octane I can get, because higher octane gas stays stable for longer. But
right. So so going back to understanding what that plan is, again, let's just say that the vehicle's not an option. Okay. Roads are blocked. Roads are shut down. What is your contingency to that?
So my little page of notes over here is split down the middle the left side is if my vehicle is an option, and the right side is if I must go on foot, because going back to those different checklists,
Right.
and if I have 5 minutes, my checklist is going to be way different than if I have 2 hours. Whether I have access to a vehicle or whether the vehicle is viable, or what's that, War of the Worlds, where the supposed EMP like disabled every vehicle except for mom's minivan. But
Oh, right. Right.
you know, if for whatever reason vehicles or the roads, you know, that's a good point too. If your vehicle may work, but maybe every single road is gridlock, like Leave the World Behind.
Right.
But anyway, sorry. But yeah, my list is split down the middle based on that. Am I going in vehicle or am I going on foot? And that's even, and then there's even a consideration within that consideration, because like I have 2 vehicles, and like the super duper Rambo John Matrix Commando part of my brain would want to take my big lifted armored Toyota Tacoma that has a winch and all this tools and all this stuff. But on a good day, I can go about 210 miles in my Tacoma. And because it's lifted and heavy and armored and has big tires and all that, my miles per gallon is severely limited. I always used to jokingly say that one of the most realistic parts of The Walking Dead was they were cruising around in a Pontiac Aztek, because, you know,
Right. Right.
everybody thinks to themselves that like your best option in a bug out vehicle is a Jeep Rubicon on 37s, but that may not be true.
Yeah.
In my other vehicle, if it had a full tank of gas and plus 2 gas cans, I could almost go 1,000 miles with a full tank of gas and with 2 gas cans. So you know, and then in Homestead, another thing that they do a great job illustrating was the family at the very, very beginning of the movie. They have a Tesla, and
Oh, yeah.
at the beginning, that Tesla is an asset for them, but it
Yeah.
very quickly becomes a liability. So even, am I going in a vehicle or am I going on foot? That's a choice to make, but
Now, did
deciding
you
which vehicle is also a choice. And
right? So
as it,
we know our rule of threes, right? What you have, what you can't live without, 3 seconds or 3 minutes. What did they not have in their kit, which is exactly what they needed in that part of? I mean, what was right off the bat? What did he say when the explosion went off? Don't breathe the air.
oh, okay, yeah, I didn't, yeah, yep,
Right. Don't breathe the air. And it's what, so I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday who lives in Florida, and he's like, yeah, he's like, my kids got go bags and they all got this, and each one has X amount of days of food. And now they're in a little bit of a situation where they're in Florida and they don't have drinking water readily available, even though they are surrounded by water. Short of pools, but chlorine and whatnot. But I said, okay. I said, all of that ammo, this, that, the other thing. What about a gas mask? No, don't have that yet. Okay, great. But it's on his list. He knows that he needs to get it. So I noticed that they didn't have that right off the bat. But
yeah. So, and I have gotten, I think I'm a pretty smart guy, and I think I'm a pretty prepared guy in general. But I got some of my best survival tips from one of my friends that he was a Marine sniper, and he got out of the Marines. But after he got out of the Marines, he lived in Baton Rouge, and I went and visited him. And you'll have to forgive me because I'm not very good with that geographic area. But there's a big lake there in Baton Rouge, and one night he and I were like hanging out, drinking beer by the side of the lake or whatever. And he pointed like just on the other side of the lake, just past, kind of the visible horizon, like over the trees. He said that there's like a chemical plant over there, like it's like a factory where they make toxic chemicals. And so if there was an earthquake or if there was a fire, if there's a tsunami, like, because I think when you say gas mask to somebody, they think, the SWAT team shooting tear gas canisters through your window, or a foreign military using a chemical weapon. But there's many, many other reasons, is my point, that you should have a gas mask in your kit. And we haven't gotten there yet, but when you are building your go bag or your bug out bag, you do need to take those kind of things into consideration and consider what dangers are unique to your your regional area. And after I had that discussion with him, I got, well, because it's me and my daughter. I got 3 gas masks, 2 adult-sized ones, and 1 either small adult or kid-sized gas mask with the canisters, and those are part of my kit now. So
yeah. But so what you were just saying is obviously, and I like how you have your notes there split into 2 things, and I think that's what I mean by you really should have a checklist of situations or scenarios,
a flow chart.
a
If
flow
this,
chart.
then
Yeah,
that.
exactly, connected to
Yeah.
your emergency plan. Because okay, you can't leave the house, then you don't have to grab bag A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3. Your plan is to now stay where you are until you can move to get to where you ever or who you need to get to. So you talked about your immediate plan is to get to your daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You have a plan for that, and that plan doesn't include multiple bags with multiple pieces of equipment. If you cannot take your vehicle, you're probably grabbing maybe 1 bag or 2 bags. I mean, you also at that point, you're not going all kitted out, plate carrier, nods, helmet, this, that, and the other thing. You probably want to be as low key, low vis as possible to make it to your daughter, to get her to get back to your home base or your temporary home base. So that's scenario 1. So basically it's okay, we've got a plan that gets activated if these things happen. Now, which plan do we put into play is kind of the next part of that, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
for
just
sure.
say, we're going to bug out. I'm going to go here, pick these people up, and then we're going to go to the mountains. Great. That's not an option.
Well, or is it? And so,
Well,
like
yeah.
that's what I said. Like when I talked about my vehicle selection, a part of me would want to take the big badass off road, totally built up overland vehicle, but like I said, on a good day, on a full tank of gas in that truck, I can only go 220 miles, about 225 miles. In my other vehicle, I can go about 500 miles on a tank of gas, and then if I could throw a couple of gas cans in the back, then that's gonna push my range to around 800 miles or so. And do you happen to know, I know this from the military, do you know your average person, which I actually don't think this is your average person. I think this is your above average person, with a full pack on. Do you know like what the average mileage per day, that like for military planning considerations, we plan that like soldiers on foot with full equipment can move this far per day. You know what it is?
10? I'm going to just guess 10 miles.
That's a good guess. 12 miles.
12 miles.
So like people of military average fitness, carrying a full pack and a weapon can move 12 miles a day. So in the Homestead scenario where you have a radioactive, a dirty bomb, it's not a nuclear bomb because it doesn't go high order, like it's not Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but it's a radioactive bomb. And so if you had to go on foot, you're only going to make it 12 miles. And is that far enough? Is that going to get you out of danger? And the answer is no, it's not. And if depending on your vehicle and your vehicle selection, you can possibly extend that, again, within a day's time, 400, 500, 600 miles. Is that going to get you out of danger? Yeah, but you got to get there.
Right. Yeah. Now, the other part of their plan was getting to this location called the Homestead. Well, I don't have a multi-billion-dollar freaking house on a hill with land and fences to go to. That also needs to play into all of this. And again, this is not anything new. We've talked about this. This might even be some of the first things that we talked about on this show, but I've evolved with that. And This is something that I'll put out there to people, and think about it. It's an option, right? I know that I wouldn't be staying where I'm at right here. The goal would be to get away from as far away from New York City and the East Coast as I can. And again, you can either do that in a vehicle and hope you can do that in a vehicle with the people that are in your group, but you still have to have a place to go. There are resources out there like Zillow and realtor.com that show you that there are houses for sale, and some of those houses have people in them, and some of them are new developments, and they're not fully built, and they may not have a lot of stuff, but they are a form of shelter. I can tell you that a vacant house is where I will end up. Hopefully it is a vacant house with not a lot of people around it, but it would be a temporary situation, and you can find temporary situations on your route to wherever you need to go. But that is something that I've thought about. And if we're talking about the kind of situation that we're talking about, I'm not really worried about the authorities showing up and saying, well, you're squatting here.
Yeah.
Cool,
Okay.
dude. Get out of my face.
Write me a ticket.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Arrest me. I'll be at the court date next month.
And one of the other things we've talked about, again, we've talked about this over several of the different episodes we've done, because it's a good mindset to have in general, and it's applicable to many different things, is, living in the middle. Like, a lot of people, when they're talking about these survival situations or disaster preparedness, people tend to be in this like one extreme or the other mindset, when really the place you need to be is in the middle. And as where it pertains to this movie, and where it pertains to what you should be doing for making your plans, is, like you just said, you don't have a fortress in the Rocky Mountains that, with crops and and hey, kudos to this dude, because in the movie,
Right.
he's got like a underground bunker that has belt-fed machine guns, and he's got
right.
shit tons of ammunition, and they're growing crops, they're growing fruits, they're growing vegetables. They have a solar farm with solar panels. He's got grain silos. But nobody has that. I mean, very,
Right.
very, very few people have that and have the resources to have that. And so, on one end of the spectrum is the fortified castle in the mountains with seemingly endless supplies. And number one, even if you had that, the movie shows that that's not that's not necessarily a guaranteed good solution, because you have all this property, you have this big house, you have these buildings, you have these crops, you have this wooded area. But if you have all that property, and like you said, we're in a situation now where you're not calling the cops anymore, because we've gone back to like Wild West rules.
Right.
If you have this big piece of property and this big thing, you're making yourself a big target, because everybody's going to want this big nugget that you have, this big nest egg that you have. So now you need to defend it, and now you need people to defend it, and more people means more mouths to feed, which means more of a drain on your resources, which means you're drawing more attention, because now you're taking these people in, but you're not taking these people in. And and so that's one extreme. Number one, most people don't have that, and even if you did have that, it's not the dream solution that you may think that it is. But on the other end of the spectrum is trekking off into the wilderness by yourself and setting up a pup tent and think you're going to be on long-term Bear Grylls survival mode by yourself. That's not a viable solution either. So in the movie, I really liked that one of the first things they did, this is in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, is they link up. Everywhere they go, they're running their vehicles in a convoy real tight, so no other cars can get in between them. And how are they communicating? Not with cell phones.
Ham radio.
They have radios. So
two-way radios.
Yeah, they have radios. So they initiate their initial like bug out response to the situation that's happened. But the first part of their plan is to rendezvous, and then when they depart from their rendezvous location headed towards the homestead, They run their vehicles in a really tight convoy so that no other vehicles can get between them, everything. And they're communicating on two-way radios, ham radios, whatever it is, but it's radio communication, short wave or short distance communication on radios, run their vehicles in a convoy. And that's great because right off the bat, they're in this middle ground. If they don't make it to the homestead, they're still in pretty good shape because they have 3 vehicles. They have weapons. They have a team of guys that like you said at the top, each of those people had their own plan. Now we have combined our plans and made like links in a little chain.
Right.
And my point is, even if they don't make it to the homestead, they're going to be in pretty good shape wherever they are. Kind of again to your point, this is the goal.
Yeah.
But if it's either going to take several days to get there, or if we don't make it there, we can find temporary solutions in between, or we can adjust our plan and make it into a new plan. But yeah.
Now, one of the things, and the funny part about this entire show is we're almost 3/4 of the way done with it, and we barely even covered the topic that we wanted to talk about today. But I think what that means is we're going to lead into this subject and then probably fully unpack it, if you will, on a second episode. And one of the things, like I said, one of the first things that the female says to the kids is grab the go bags and get in the vehicle. And the same thing for the military dude. He said, they said grab the go bags and let's go. I think everybody has a different name for different bags. I know we have talked about in the past on, get home bags. And the way I look at my get home bag is it basically levels up my EDC, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the mushroom and the sunflower in Super Mario Brothers. It takes me from little Mario to big Mario, not Luigi, because that dude, he just shoots people in the back of the head. But it levels me up that way. Luigi Mangione.
I know, I got you.
Okay. So
I thought you were about to shit talk like actual Luigi, because I always preferred Luigi over Mario in the game.
I mean, he was pretty awesome. But so that's that bag, and then I've got a I guess a go bag, and my go bag is just a larger well, I guess my get home bag is also, it's a part 2, right? So it levels up that and then also gives me additional EDC items, like a second firearm.
It's interesting because when you and I think I saw the movie before you did, and so after you saw it, then we talked about it on the phone. You had a different interpretation than I did of just that little scene, and it's just this. It's a 5-second scene at the beginning of the movie where the statement is made, go get the go bag, and there's a quick little smash cut shot to the woman like opening the closet, and there's it's like a square duffel bag type bag, and she grabs it, and they go to the car. Your interpretation of that was they're grabbing that go bag with the intention of never returning home. That wasn't necessarily my interpretation of that, because of exactly what we're talking about here. Different people call these things different names. What go bag, even though you and I may both have go bags, what your go bag is sounds like it's something different than my go bag, because like go means go means right now, I didn't swing into action like Batman and Robin right now. So my go bag is weapons, ammunition, body armor. Like it's like my go bag, what I call my go bag, has no survival supplies in it at all. And so there are all these different things. There's people, and I was thinking about this yesterday when I was walking my dog. Like a few years ago, it's like the term bug out bag was like all over the place, and I almost feel like it's kind of gone away.
I think bug out bag has been replaced with go bag. I mean, remember, but I think it started before that with the 72-hour bag, right? There was a 3-day bag. Like those are all terminology, and it's basically saying where, okay, prepare to not come back to your house for 72 hours, 3 days. You're right. I didn't even really get into what I consider my go bag in my truck is, because it does have, like, it's got more medical, like, it levels up the medical. It's got a compass. It's got more survival stuff than it does anything like that, weapons, ammunition.
That's why that's my go bag.
Yeah. So
because I also have a get home bag, which
Yep.
my get home bag, it's so funny because all these terms are like interwoven together,
Yeah.
because the kind of the principle or the methodology behind what went into my get home bag was one of my friends that was a former Navy SEAL. He told his wife, because he traveled a lot for his work after he got out of the military, and he told his wife, like, if anything goes down, wait for me for 3 days. And if I'm not here after 3 days, then I'm dead, because his whole thing was no matter what happens and no matter where he is in the United States, he can get home in 3 days. So he had a get home bag that was designed to get him. If he lived in San Diego and he was on business in Maine, his thing is, I can get from Maine to San Diego in 3 days. And so, that, and him telling his wife that, and then me thinking about it and going, yeah, that kind of is a pretty fair yardstick for a knowledgeable and prepared person that has the necessary skill set. You probably could get from anywhere in the United States to anywhere else in the United States in 3 days.
I'm going to question that. I'm not sure if you were not able to do that, if you don't have a vehicle, how are you getting cross country in 3 days? I don't know that that's possible. Forrest Gump took a lot longer than that.
You would have to have some sort of vehicle. You'd have to either, steal an airplane or steal a helicopter or have a motor vehicle or whatever. But his whole thing, the whole basis of his get home pack was he telling his wife to wait for 3 days, but after 3 days, then execute the plan without him, and he'll get there. But he said he should be able to make it home from anywhere in the United States. He should be able to make it home within 3 days. And so I thought, whether that's correct or not, I did think that was a good foundational idea of how to tailor your get home bag, because the other thing that a lot of people try to do with their bug out bag or get home bag, they try to put everything but the kitchen sink, or maybe some people will try to put the kitchen sink in there too. And that's the other thing that you really shouldn't do. You do need to have some sort of mission statement like that, like what I just used as an example, to tailor your bag without trying to fit the entire contents of an REI store on your back,
Right. But, and I think that's where a lot of people run into confusion or questions about what does that bag look like? How big should it be? How heavy should it be? Obviously, if it's going to fit in a vehicle, like, to me, so folks, going back to what I said, I realized when I walked away from watching this movie, I walked away with the understanding that I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. There are holes in my plan and probably my execution of what that looks like. And B, I need to evolve my bag situation, whatever words you want to put in front of the word bag. They need to be changed. Mine needs to be changed, whether it's a go bag, a bug out bag, or your little coin phrase, which I love the most, the inch bag.
Yep.
Because all of those are different. Obviously, where my elevation of what I'm putting into that inch bag is obviously the weapons that we were just talking about, weapons and ammunition. I'm assuming, and I'll ask you the question, does your go bag loadout differ from your inch loadout?
Yeah, so I've talked about, I can't remember which episode it was where we talked about this, but I know we have talked about it before. I approach most of this with the kind of the mindset that I was trained very early on in my military career with first line, second line, third line gear. First line gear, to put it into kind of civilian terms, is your EDC. It's what's on your person. That's your first line gear. Your second line gear is what you said. It's your Mario eating the mushroom. It's your leveled up EDC. And so it's, first line gear is what I have in my pockets on my person. My second line gear is, just to put it in terms people can understand, would be like your plate carrier, your chest rig, a rifle, and
Right.
couple of canteens of water, whatever. That would be your second line gear. It's still on your person, but it's plussed up. And then your third line gear is like the backpack on your back with the spare batteries for your radio and your tent and your MREs, your food. And so to put it back into military terms, if I'm carrying my full loadout, first, second, and third line gear, as soon as bullets start flying, I'm ditching this backpack so I can move and shoot and dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, right? And then if this gunfight goes bad and I run out of ammunition for my rifle and my whole team gets killed or that I get cut off or whatever, now I need to go on E&E, escape and evade. So now I'm going to ditch my second line gear and just be that back down to kind of what's on my person to escape and evade and survive. And so I look at my kits or my bags kind of in that same frame of mind to answer your question. So like my inch bag would kind of be my get home bag plus my go bag. Put together, like my go bag is ready to go right now, right? It's sitting down there right now ready to go, but it does not have survival supplies in there. It's basically like, to be honest, it's like gunfighting kit.
Okay.
So
hold on, let me just jump in. That's very interesting because that will only get you so far, right? That won't get you. You've got no water in there. Is there a gas mask, pro mask?
Not in that one, no.
Okay. So,
I kill you and take your gas mask.
there you go. The 3 minutes versus 3 minutes, 3 hours portion of that survival situation aren't covered in, really none of that.
But again, like the way I have this laid out in my mind, is that I would have my EDC backpack. So I do have a little like day pack, and I don't carry it on me all the time like a kid at Disneyland. But it does go with me every day. If it's not on me, it's in my car. And it has my battery charger. It does have has a raincoat. It has a change of socks. It has a watch cap. It has a bottle of water. It has like a fire starter. It has spare batteries. It has a flashlight. It does have very, very, very basic, like I said, because it's in a small day pack and it goes with me everywhere. It's got a Leatherman Raptor tool. You know what those are? It's like the little. It's like the
sheath.
They're like EMT shears, but like it's got like a strap cutter and all this other stuff. So it's got that on there. So if I have my go bag, my assumption is that I will, at a minimum, I'll have that go bag, which is rifle, chest rig, body armor, pistol belt, pistol, mags, ammo, tourniquets, trauma kit. If I have the go bag, then I assume that I'll also have that EDC bag. And then that will hopefully get me through a short-term disaster. And then if I can get home, then I can get my get home bag, which is kind of in between that and my inch bag you referenced before. Inch, you spell out inch, it's INCH, which stands for I'm never coming home. So my I'm never coming home bag is different. But then like the other thing that I wanted to throw out there from what you just said is, if you've got a wife and kids, let's say you're living the American dream and you got a wife and 2 kids, they they also need their own little bug out. Big or small. My bug out bag or my go bag or my get home bag, whatever we're calling it, I have a raincoat, but it's a raincoat for me. If I've got a wife and 2 kids with me, then they need to have a raincoat too, and they need to have a bottle of water too, and they so that definitely also needs to factor into your.
So I want to focus on 2 things you said. So obviously you said you assume that you're going to have this and that, and we won't go down the cliche of, or the quotes of what happens when you assume, but the other thing is these are your best laid plans, right? And you know what they say, what the quote is when it comes to best laid plans of mice and men always go awry. So
your plan is great until you get punched in the face.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's something that I kind of want to, and like I said, this is definitely going to be part one of part two. And as we kind of round out today's episode and we start to get into the crux of what we were originally going to talk about when it comes to bags and plans, I think this is very much like the checklist of bags, or I'm sorry, the checklist of survival plans or emergency plans that you have, right? Like you should have a bag for, like Jamie's go bag is your weapons loadout. It's like playing Counter-Strike or Call of Duty. If you ever had these things, like you would start off your mission with selecting what you were going to bring. In order to meet that 5-minute emergency out the door deadline, you should have these put together already. Like you don't need to take your best or favorite pair of Z Cavarici pants and keep them in your bag. I just dated myself right there. Okay, your best Levi's dungarees. Like, you've got to understand what clothing that is, right? Like someone like me in the Northeast, I can't choose the time of year when the emergency is going to happen. So my bag better have something for cold weather if the bad guys decide to hit us in December versus.
And you need to stay within your means, and you need to stay within what's realistic, for you. And if you live in a small studio apartment in downtown New York or downtown Los Angeles,
get out.
You can't even afford to have all these things, or you don't even have room to put them. So
right, yeah.
So take all what we're saying as kind of like guardrails, but keep yourself grounded in the middle, right. And be realistic for what makes sense to you. And that may be a bag with a little bit of food, grenades. A little bit of water. Yeah, 50 grenades. A little bit of food, a little bit of water, a med kit, and a map. And hope that gets you out. Like me, and one of the things I think Chris was saying is you can't have an empty bag hanging on a coat hook and tell yourself that when an emergency happens, I'm going to go grab the empty bag and then I'm going to throw in there this and this and this and this and this and this
for that specific situation.
Correct.
So just yeah. Okay. So let me just elaborate on that. You can't wait for the situation to happen and then go pack your bag. Like,
right. So that's what I'm getting at. So
right.
You should your kit or your go bag or whatever you're going to call it. It should be a standalone thing that is already packed, already ready to go. And, but you don't have to spend $1 million to make that happen. Like what Chris said, like take an old pair of pants that still fits and is still in good repair, but maybe they're a pair of pants you don't really wear much anymore. Put those in there. Like, whenever I buy, this is another one of those things that I just rotate out. Whenever I go buy a new pair of hiking shoes, I'll wear the new ones. I'll take my most recent old ones and I'll put those into my get home bag. And then the super old ones that were already in the get home bag at that point, those get thrown out. But my point is, I live in Southern California, so I wear flip-flops a large percentage of the time. And so in an emergency, I like shoes and socks do need to be a part of my get home bag because it's statistically speaking, I would say there's a high chance that I would not be wearing shoes on my feet in a situation, but that's me. So, but I didn't go out and spend $200 to buy a brand new pair of shoes to put in my get home bag is where I'm going. I just took something that I already had and put it in there. I took an old headlamp that I bought for camping 5 years ago and haven't ever used, put batteries in it, make sure it works. Okay, now that goes in the go bag. It's things I already had. So that's what I was driving at.
And I think that's a great point. And what I definitely want to do on the next episode. Oh, and the other thing that you are going to need in this situation is clearly a CMC trigger because, that made it into the movie. So for anybody who has not seen the movie, and I know that you're a CMC trigger fan, and so am I.
For many years, I was sponsored by CMC triggers.
Yeah, and I forgot about that because we talked about that, and I forgot about it until that scene happened, and I was like, Oh wow, there it is. Like it was like if you don't know CMC triggers, you would have you wouldn't even realize what you just saw. But anybody who knows it, I was just like, holy crap, they really did focus on that. And I'm trying to figure out. I think I'm going to reach out to Debbie and ask her about it because I think it's interesting. But yeah, so have a CMC trigger in your rifle and you're good to go. But anyway, as we round out this episode and prepare for the next one, I think what's important to take away and then to look forward to for next one is understanding a little bit about those bags, where they should live, what should they look like in size and weight, because all of that is going to be very, very important when you decide what plan has to be activated. Is it get in your vehicle, throw those bags in your truck, and you've got a clear road all the way from here to Paducah? Like, great. That plan is easy to execute with bags because you just load them in the truck and you're gone. My inch bag isn't necessarily a bag more than a case or a box with a set of wheels on it, because if I need to, and it's a Husky job box with two wheels on the back, and it's got a big old handle, and I can trail it behind me, or if I need to, I can probably fashion two more wheels where it's a 4-wheel rolling unit.
That's interesting. So my quote unquote inch bag is a full on, like, large, like backpacker's backpacking backpack, like you would use to hike the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, fully loaded with like long-term survival supplies. But I also have, like, the way, like, when I go camping, my camping gear is set up kind of in boxes like you were just describing. And so if I'm going into an inch situation where I do have my vehicle, I'll throw those bags and those camping boxes in the vehicle. But if I'm forced to just go on foot, then I just have the bag ready to go.
So fun fact, one of the things in my inch box, if you will, is my plate carrier.
Oh yeah, that's on my bag.
So I'm not really rocking that thing anytime soon. Like, I'm not putting that on to add any extra weight. But again, folks, this is part 1 of this episode. So with that being said, I want to say thank you for spending some of your time listening to today's show. We hope you got a lot out of it, and we hope you join us for part 2. So until next time, Jamie.
We have no affiliation to that movie, but if you are the kind of person that likes listening to this podcast, that movie is for you, and I would definitely recommend going to see it. Other than that, it's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart.
All right, folks, until next time, you stay safe out there. ZP002 out.